All right, we'll open the meeting at 6:30.
Okay.
We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, I'll do that. George Cullis here. Karen Winchester absent. Jennifer Ryan.
Here.
Derek Burton.
Here.
Steve Ruth.
Here.
Motion to excuse Karen Winchester. She's on vacation until the 20th.
Support.
Motion by Cullis, support by Ruth. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries. Now, we will go for agenda approval. I want to add one thing to new business, amend the agenda, and that is the resignation from Kurt Miskovich.
Make a motion to approve the agenda with item 2 added under new business.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Trustee Ryan, support by by Trustee Burton, support by Treasurer Ryan. All in favor say, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Now the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial. They do not require discussion by the Township Board and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired on an item, then that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will automatically be moved to the last item under new business.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Trustee Burton with the motion to approve. Is there support? Support by Trustee Ruth. This is a roll call vote. Jennifer Ryan,
Yes.
Derek Burton,
Yes.
Steve Ruth,
Yes.
George Cullis, yes. Motion carries 4-0. Now, we will go to public comments. Okay. We don't have any public hearings. We don't have any presentations, so we will go to reports. I'll start with the trustees, Mr. Burton
Okay. Planning Commission did not meet this month, so I have nothing to report.
and Mr. Ruth.
No, nothing from me either.
Treasurer Ryan.
No report.
Okay, so how about it, as your report, you just tell us, are you getting comfortable yet?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm feeling better. Getting organized, going through files, things like that. Working
Okay.
a lot with the county to learn things.
Okay, good enough. For the supervisor's report, so I have a couple of things. On the topic of the 501c3 that we needed for charitable contributions, the foundation, I've been in contact with them, and the attorney for the township had said that we really didn't need a 501c3, that foundations can donate to municipalities in the same way they can donate to 501c3s. The problem was the foundation had language that did not coincide with that. So we've had a meeting with the foundation and the donors, and they are actually moving forward with language to change their bylaws that will allow both of those. That will then save us from having to have the 501c3. So the IRS recognizes municipalities in the same way it does 501c3s from a charitable donation standpoint. The problem is that if the foundation has specific requirements, then that's the hurdle you have to deal with. So it's my understanding that the attorney has that language, and they'll be voting on that in the next week. So we may not have to go to the trouble of the 501c3. Second thing is Bloomfield Township, specifically Franklin Road, where the Franklin cider mill is, has a development going on, and it's the old Pickering Fruit Farm, which years ago had its own cider mill right up the street from the Franklin cider mill. And that development bought the farm, and Bloomfield Township wanted to buy the piece of property that the barn sat on to preserve that barn along with the 1850s house going forward. The price for that portion of the property was $2 million, and they were only able to raise 1.1 million. The township board didn't want to put any money toward that, so that's kind of where they were stuck. They recently reached out to Holly Township because they knew we had our farmstead project, and I had an opportunity to go down and look at the barn. As you know, we have other buildings to put on our farmstead project, and with the price of lumber, if we can get a free barn, then that has some interest. I went down there with our barn right today, and we looked over the barn. It goes back to the 1830s. It was a barn built for a fruit farm. So it's a little different barn than you're used to seeing, but it's in incredibly good condition, in part due to the fact that it had been used all these years, so it didn't sit dormant, and they made sure it always had a good roof on it and so forth. And then they had 2 additions over the years, the last one being back in the 1950s. So we're looking at that. I'm not sure what that means for us, but just the idea that all that lumber and hand-hewn timbers and so forth is sitting there available is kind of an interesting project. So we'll be looking at that over the next few weeks, and I'll come back to you with more than that. You will see that we have under new business the resignation for Kurt Miskovich. Township parks are still having some problems getting things in order, and unfortunately Mr. Miskovich got to the point where he was frustrated due to the lack of support from other board members and the constant pushback on getting anything done. He was putting 20 to 30 hours a week into the parks trying to clean up the situation, and he'd had enough, so unfortunately we have to visit that. Otherwise, that's pretty much it for my report. The audit's coming along. I think we're maybe 2 weeks away. We'll probably have it for next month. Yep. So, public comment. Public comment is on agenda items only. Members of the public can address the board on agenda items only. Once recognized by the supervisor, comments are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. The board may extend this time by a majority vote. Prior to addressing the board, members of the public shall state their name and address for the record. A second public comment is available after new business for all other comments. Thank you ahead of time for your cooperation. Anybody who wishes to speak at public comment? None appearing? I will move. We don't have any old business. I will move to new business. That is the dust control program. You'll see the paperwork is in your packet. We have traditionally done 5 applications. They have held the price at where they were last year, so I suppose you could say that's the good news. We also have, not on the agenda for tonight, but just so you know, we have the information on our tri-party funds and whether or not we're going to do any road graveling this year. We still have a couple of roads left to do. However, we're waiting for the audits to be completed so we can take a look at our finances and make the decision. I'll probably have that on the board on the agenda for next month. But for this month, we have the dust control. Chair would entertain a motion.
They do that. Oh, I can wait till comments.
Make a motion to approve the road commission for the 2023 chloride program for 5 applications of $79,092.86.
Motion by trustee Burton for the dust control. Is there support?
Now, I do want to add that that is for the blanket program. Is that the
Yep.
Holly Township and Village of Holly?
Yep, we've
Okay.
always done the Village
Okay.
of Holly.
Just want to
Yep.
make sure that was clear before me.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by trustee Ruth. Any further discussion?
Seems like last year, they always were, many times, it seemed like they were doing it right after it rained. It became very wet.
Mm.
Is there any, these are predetermined days?
You know, they start at one point and they work their way around. They contract with somebody, and I don't know how that's done. I do know that we had some concern from residents on Mitchell Road that it was put on so heavy that it was laying like a layer on top of the road.
Yep.
So they're going to try to, I talked with Gordy, and they're going to try to pay closer attention to make sure that the road's been freshly graded just before they get out there,
Good, okay.
and coordinate that. So I know that's one topic we have been on.
And the only thing I had two questions, one of which I answered on the way here, but I, for the life of me, could not find Elementary Drive. But on the notes it says it's going to be paved in 2008. I just want to confirm that that's not paved. Elementary Drive to Elm on the sublocal Village of Holly page.
That's the street that is next to the elementary school. It goes alongside, the old bus garage used to be back there.
Okay.
I don't know that they have any intention of paving that
Okay.
at this point, but
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to pay for it if it was paved, but
no.
I wasn't 100% sure. So
Where did you see that?
the Elementary Drive one.
It's on the page.
Where did you see they're beginning to pave it in 2000?
Oh, there's notes to the right. There was that one, then Hubble also had mentioned dates. Village paved in 2007, but I drove by it and it obviously wasn't paved.
I
but-
see where it says according to village ad, and I see this other note.
It's over on the right-hand side. Should be.
Yeah, so here's the one. So like right here, it says village being paved in 2008, and then for village belongs to Township. So
Oh,
on that
here it
far
is.
right,
Okay.
yeah. So really it was just Elementary Drive and then Hubble Drive, but Hubble Drive's dirt, and then sounds like Elementary Drive is as well. So.
I can look into that and find out. I'm just wondering why it's.
If you're talking about that back entrance
Uh-huh.
to Holly Elementary, I think that was paved in their, in the work they did there, when they changed that.
Okay. Well, ironically, this says 2008. So I'll go ahead and look into it and see. Any further discussion?
Should I amend my motion contingent upon that being dirt?
You can if you want.
Okay.
Well, actually, this is, if I'm reading the notes correctly, it says that this has been removed from the treatments. Removed 331 of 08 per the village being paved, it says.
Oh, that one's for Franklin. As far as I know, I don't know. It was kind of hard to follow. Where it says the individual's name, then removed. Yeah, I guess
No,
I'm
I'm
not.
reading it. No, I'm reading.
There's a 1684 removed.
Yeah.
And I
For
see. I was
808.
under the impression that went for East Street, and then each of these lines went for that designated
Well,
street line.
I've marked those 4 lines,
Okay.
and I'll be looking into them.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Derek Burton,
Yes.
Steve Ruth,
Yes.
George Cullis, yes. Jennifer Ryan.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. The next item under new business is the resignation from Kurt Miskovich. Let me bring it up here and I will read it to you. It's addressed to the Holly Township Parks and Rec Board, and when he sent it out, he also sent it to the Township Supervisor. It is with a heavy heart that I am tendering my resignation from my seat on the Holly Township Parks and Rec Board. I have become painfully aware that the current board has no intention of creating a park system that would be a gem for the surrounding community. There is a lack of cooperation and participation of the board to make the necessary decisions to advance the parks from the current decrepit state to a well-maintained and welcomed area for the community. A huge problem with the board is a total lack of preparation and due diligence in preparing for a board meeting. There seems to be no review of board packets prior to the meeting that is sent a week prior to the board meeting. Meeting minutes are late or not supplied until the day of the meeting. I have observed the general decline of Sorensen Park, where mice were allowed to destroy arts and crafts supplies, the broken and unusable equipment, storage of junk and trash. There's a lack of general maintenance of the nature center, beach, trucks, ATVs, tractor, and the park grounds itself. It seems that the current board is more concerned with infighting while letting it deteriorate even further than it currently is. I have been spending anywhere from 10 to 30 hours a week doing work for the parks, cleaning up the nature center, setting up meetings, getting equipment repaired that has been neglected far too long. Last night at our regularly scheduled board meeting, March 8th, 2023, 2 members of the board brought up the fact that the agenda had a typo. The word workshop appeared in the agenda heading, and for that reason they would not be voting on anything in this meeting. With 3 people absent, we would not have a quorum. Therefore, the meeting had to be canceled. Now, state law does not require an agenda, so this could have been resolved simply by amending the agenda. It was also brought up that the meeting hadn't been posted properly, which was another contention for these 2 board members. Regularly scheduled meetings of the boards and commissions don't require posting. Only special meetings have this requirement. This continued stonewalling does nothing to advance the parks at a time when there are so many issues that need to be addressed. This only delays the inevitable. The board is more concerned with talking about doing things than actually accomplishing anything. The continuing hindrance of the board in hiring a park supervisor and program coordinator to start handling the day-to-day tasks and preparing for the summer is a huge blow to the parks. I was told many times that the board is legislative and not administrative. The board's job is to provide administrative oversight. And yet this is the argument. If this isn't true, then there is no need for the board. Without the board providing some administrative services, the parks will continue to deteriorate, so it is because of this lack of cooperation and participation that I am resigning. That is Kirk Miskovich.
Wow. How long has he been on that board?
Well, we appointed him, that was the John Love whole thing about a year ago
Okay.
when we put him on there, and he has worked really hard trying to learn and understand and do this. The unfortunate thing for the township parks, because it's a separately elected park board, it has no administrative oversight. Now, the part that he put in here about the regularly scheduled board meeting, well, it turns out that their board meetings, when we pass our calendar for the year, that has to be posted publicly. It has to be put in the paper, public notice. It turns out that the park board has never posted their public meetings. Apparently that was one of the other board members was the secretary, and she has just never gotten it posted, which was another frustration. And you know, when you're these are positions for basically volunteers. They don't get paid, and you know, there's 3 things that'll burn a person out: overworking them, lack of support, and infighting. And he mentions all of these here. So unfortunately, he is stepping down. We have 45 days to fill that position. By law, the name is brought forward by the supervisor. I will be working on that. There is nothing in the law that says we have to post the opening. I do have several resumes from the last time we went through this just a few months ago, and I've got a couple of people that have voiced an interest. So I'll be looking at those, and hopefully in the April meeting I'll have a name for you. The Parks Board, under the leadership of Pat Feeney, who is their vice chair, that meeting from the 8th last week is rescheduled for tomorrow night at Sorensen Park. We will be there to make sure that meeting is videotaped so the public can see it. If anybody has any interest, you can attend that meeting. This board needs to accept his resignation to make it official, and then that starts our 45 days.
Yeah.
So I would make the motion to accept.
Support.
Support by trustee Burton. Any further conversation or discussion?
The only discussion I have, and I know you appoint the individuals, I would like to see some preference given to an outer township resident, because as far as I'm aware, they're all village residents serving on the Holly Township Parks. If we have an applicant who's well qualified and from the outer township, that would be my preference.
Well, just so you understand what my preference is, I'm looking for somebody that understands governance,
Mhm.
because there is a set of rules. As I said, there is no, technically, there is no township administrative oversight of the parks. With Kurt, Kurt was always stopping in the office to check on things, to make sure he was doing it right. I hooked him up with the Michigan Township Association several times, if you remember. They had made an agreement. They had a meeting where they went into closed session to discuss Tony Brinker's exit package, and the board had agreed to pay her $23,000. Well, we have oversight of their budget, so when they came to the township to write the check, that's when we got involved. And I said, first of all, you have an open meeting violation, because there is no reason to go. You went into closed session when it wasn't one of the reasons you can go into closed session. It was public money that had to be discussed in public. So they had to reschedule that meeting. That's how you fix an open meeting violation. They had to reschedule that meeting. And in the meantime, I suggested to Kurt that we get a hold of an attorney. We called the township attorney. She hooked us up with an HR attorney, because Tony Brinker's exit package should coincide with their policies and procedures. And that had not been done. Their policies and procedures, however, had some gray areas. And at that time I told Kurt, I said, the best thing to do is to get this attorney involved. You're going to cost, you're going to pay 2 or 3 hours for an attorney at their rate, but they will give you a letter that says this is what you should do. You can take that to the board and let the board decide somewhere between the letter from the attorney and what Ms. Brinker was asking for, and you come to your agreement. Remember, these are public monies. Your fiduciary responsibility is to deal with that. If there's a disagreement with Ms. Brinker, she can always go to court, but at least you have a document from the attorney that says this is where we stand. So they did that. The board agreed to do that. They hired her. The attorney came back, and instead of paying her $23,000, they paid her just over $5,000. So the $600 was money well spent, but it was legal. And the attorney also said, you need to clean up your policies and procedures and eliminate these gray areas. So there have been a couple of opportunities where we have been able to help them from an administrative standpoint. If that meeting last week had happened and we had one of the board members at that meeting, my hope is that would have gone very differently, because one of us would have been able to say, okay, this isn't, you can amend this budget. That means you can still vote on it, not budget, but agenda. You can amend that. The conversation about posting the meetings, you don't have to do that on a regular basis. The public meeting side of it, while it's an issue, it wouldn't have stopped the meeting, because meetings are typically held on that Wednesday of the month. But you would have made a comment in your board to make sure we get this posted. It had been posted, is my understanding, through social media, just not in the print paper. But we will move forward on that. And let me get a vote. Is there any other discussion on this or questions?
Just, so Tony was never on the board, obviously.
Tony Brinker was the director. That means she was the employee of the board.
Of the board, okay, that's right.
The problem was, because there were so many people that weren't familiar with governance and how it worked or their fiduciary, she actually ran the meetings, which shouldn't have happened. Joe
Right.
was the chair.
Right,
But if you ever was at a park board meeting, Tony was sitting there running the meeting.
once.
Joe
Yep.
usually sat, next
Yep.
to her. So they've got a lot of problems over there, and that's one of the reasons I've said, out of 1,280 townships in the state, there's between 20 and 30 individual townships that have separately elected park boards, and most of those are townships that are larger and have more money than we do. Our problem is here, if you go and look at the last 4 or 5 elections, we don't typically have enough people to run for the 7 chairs. So they were always just grabbing somebody and sticking them in a chair,
Okay.
which is another problem. And whereas if the Parks Board was under the township, similar to the Planning Commission, at every meeting, one of us would be present. We would make up one of the 7 board members. There would be 6 people from the community, but it would have administrative oversight. When decisions were made at the meeting, it would come back and the clerk's office would make sure the filing got done. The clerk's office would, whoever was there would make sure the open meeting violation didn't happen. We would be involved to the point where we had all the ducks in a row. And I think it would serve this community so much better. But we'll have to see where it takes us going forward. Any other discussion?
So we don't, again, you said nobody is paid on that board, so we don't control any of that.
No, the only 2 things we control their budget. Well, I'll give you an example, and especially for Steve, because you've been on the board as long as I have. You can remember in several of those budget, when they come to us with the budget, I think it's in March or April,
Right.
I've asked the question year after year. There's an entry for expenditures of $1,500 for concessions. There was never an entry under income to show how much of that money came back. Now, those were concessions for the park. Well, if you think about it, the park doesn't open until the kids are out of school, and it closes when they go back to school. So it's basically open from the middle of June, all of August, July, or July and August, and then early September it's closed again. $1,500 for concessions is a lot of money. What were you buying? Where was it going? Well, when Miss Brinker left and they started going through the building and going through stuff, they cleaned out this one whole room, and in the back corner of the room there was a chest freezer. When they opened the freezer, it had concessionary products from 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11 that had been at the end of the year apparently put away, but just never brought back out. I mean, the board found out that they had 2 trucks they didn't know they had. There was so much equipment and stuff. It's really unfortunate to see the state that's there. But we have discretionary over the budget, and the any of the checks they do come through the office, and they're written through the office, which is how we caught the $23,000 issue with Tony. And then the park statute, in the event that there's an opening on the Parks Board, it's the responsibility of the supervisor to bring it named forward. So that's what we do there. Is that it?
Yep.
All right, then we'll take a vote.
To accept the resignation of Kurt?
Yep, to accept the resignation of Kurt Miskovich. Steve Ruth?
Yes.
George Cullis, yes. Jennifer Ryan
Yes.
and Derek Burt.
Yes.
So that motion carries 4-0. I voted yes regretfully, but nonetheless, you can't force a person to stay.
Right.
If you could, I would have recommended voting against it. But I've talked to Kurt and tried to talk him off the bridge, and he was just done. So that's unfortunate. That is everything. We are to our last public comment. Rules are the same as in the beginning, although it's open to anything. You get 3 minutes. If you'll give your name and address when you come to the podium.
Martin Andreski, 2105 Middle Ridge Drive, Holly, Michigan. Just 2 brief comments I'd like to make. The weather's cooperating with us right now that this is, I guess, appropriate, but with spring coming, as a resident of the Riverside North development, I would just like to bring it back to the board. I know they met with the developer that several times last year, starting with a meeting in May of 22 to get them on board with finishing their commitments and getting the roads done. Unfortunately, we never did get the roads done due to time and other frustrations. So obviously I want to put that back out there on the forefront that we're getting to the point to where scheduling should start to take place and should be getting talked with. But an issue that I went back through comments that Karen had provided me from, is it HRC, the engineering side of it?
Yep.
And the one thing that I noticed was never referenced is we have the original blacktop sidewalk that runs from Grange Hall Road all the way up Riverside and then stops just shy of the curb at Rolling Hills. All they ever did is put the base coat in there. They never finished it. It is not flush with the curbs. It is not flush with the edging, and that includes at Grange Hall. That includes both of the breaks of the entranceway for Patterson Elementary. I walk that every morning with my dog, and I actually wear a hat with a light on it because you have to be aware of it. And you can trip and fall because there's, in some cases, well over an inch of a gap. But there's also sinkholes in that initial bedding surface, especially around the fire hydrant surface in there, to where I did not see in their punch list to where they were going to be held accountable to finish that sidewalk before they turn it over to the HOA. That makes it our responsibility because it's still the same initial prep as the road was. So if that was their responsibility to do the road, it should be equally their responsibility to finish the sidewalk and flush those surfaces out. That's all I have.
Okay, before you step down, what was the address you went too fast?
2105 Middle Ridge Drive.
With Karen not being here, I'm the secretary
No
too.
problem.
Okay,
Thank you.
anyone else for public comment?
Anna Matson, 15091 Western Valley. I've brought my opinion to the village, but I thought it was important.
I'm sorry, 150.
91 Western Valley. I've brought my opinion to the village, so I thought it was appropriate to bring it here too. With the village and possibly the township looking for a new building, I really think it's beneficial for people like me as a citizen to combine them. So I really want you guys to think about that going forward with planning for the future. When we first moved here, we had no idea what office to go to, and we had to go back and forth. And I know that is true for a lot of people. And in turn, in looking at these plans, I also would like to possibly try to have a community center and combine as many things as possible, like the Holly Township Library. So then we open up real estate for businesses that, in turn, that makes more money for everybody because then they have to pay property taxes and stuff. So I really think just going forward, this is something really great to think about and a really good opportunity to not only like serve citizens, but also, again, in turn, making money and bringing more businesses into our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Ryan Matson, 15091 Western Valley. I just wanted to thank all of you for allowing me the opportunity to serve on the Board of Review. It's been a pleasure this week to assist folks and their needs and answer any questions. So it's a great opportunity to serve, and it's been a pleasure to work with everyone on that board. So I just wanted to thank you all for approving my appointment there. Thank you.
Did you see many people?
There's quite a few.
Was there?
Yeah, we had, well, some of them were like veterans things, but there
Okay.
was 50.
If you're going to continue to talk, would you stay with the mic, please? The question
sir.
was, had you seen many people at the Board of Review?
I would say probably on average we saw 10 people per day so
Okay.
far, between appointments and walk-ins, and then 3 or so letter appeals, and then probably at least 30 veterans benefits applications to sign off on.
And we have one more day for Board of Review.
Correct.
Do you know that date off the top of your head?
It's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow from,
Tomorrow and Friday tentatively, but from my understanding, we will not need Friday.
do you know what the hours are tomorrow? Is it 1 to 9 or is that,
It's 9 a.m. start.
it's 9 a.m., it's the daytime, okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
What was the 5% for? I thought it was 3% was the state law or something.
No, state law is 5%.
Uh,
This is the first time they've ever done the full 5%. But the state law,
California, I'm thinking of.
well, the state law saved us some money because cost of living was
Right.
is at 8%.
Yeah.
And it depends now, just so you know, when the budget comes up, we look at cost of living for wages. We go by the quarterly report from Social Security, that's what the townships always use. But I've seen reports out there anywhere from 8, 8.5, all the way up to 11, depending on the different organizations that are putting numbers out. But by state law, they can't go beyond 5%, so that's,
Okay.
we got the full max. But understand, we are still at taxable values below what they were in '08 before the fall. We've never totally recouped all that.
But the tax base is low because there's a lot of people who've been here forever. I mean,
Right.
their houses are 20.
Well, but that's what I'm
25
saying,
years.
because it won't uncap.
Right.
The problem with, Headley was designed to help people not get thrown out of their houses due to a sudden increase.
Right.
And it worked for many years that way. It kept your taxes going up just minimally. The problem with Headley was, and nobody foresaw this, there is nothing in there that in the case of a recession, when all of the home values plummeted, once the recovery came back, if you look at a scale on the wall, your taxable values were here and your assessed value was here. Then all of a sudden, values plummeted, your taxable value went with them, and now they have started coming back up. But as they went back up, because we've pretty much recovered from where we were,
Right.
the taxable value kept going slowly. So what that meant was municipalities, government agencies we're not collecting what we were back prior to the fall. And the village really sees that pain because that's why they don't have money to pave their streets and buy the equipment they needed. We see the problem with the fire department. The fire department has a laundry list of equipment that needs to be replaced. Fortunately, we got the one grant. We got ARPA money from both Holly Township and Rose Township. It created $1.1 million. But as you look at the list of equipment, some of it dating back to the middle 80s with the brush truck that was a stick shift and a couple of those vehicles, $1.1 million doesn't go very far. When one engine costs you 300 and some thousand,
Right.
then you got to dump another 50 into it to get it all ready. Once you get it back here, it disappears pretty quick. And we still have quite a list of equipment that under normal circumstances we would have been replacing as we went along. But for so many years, there just wasn't the budget to do it. And the village of Holly is going through that same problem.
Okay.
Anyone else for public comment? None appearing. If there is no further business to come before this board, I will call the meeting at 7:09.